What organism is best prepared for an SHTF scenario? Well, I've got to say, I'm going to think it's going to be an omnivore, and I'll tell you why. So do you think that carnivores or herbivores will be better for an SHTF scenario? If you have an opinion, go ahead and make a comment below. But I'm actually going to focus today on omnivores, because omnivores eat both plant and animal material, which I think really sets us up for SHTF scenarios biologically, from a biological standpoint. As you know, predators or carnivores, they are going to consume other animal material in order to get their energy. And herbivores consume plant material to get their energy, while omnivores consume both. And that makes us very adaptive, very flexible, and resilient in terms of food shortages. If part of the food web is affected, we can adjust and adapt. Whereas predators and herbivores aren't able to adapt the same way we are. So if there's an SHTF situation and it affects the food chain, then humans can adapt pretty well. If there's not enough of a certain type of food, omnivores can adapt because there are so many different types of things that we can still eat. And if we're looking at biodiversity, the more biodiverse our food webs are, the more we will be able to adapt in difficult times. For people who choose a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle, it will be more difficult for them to adapt to an SHTF scenario. If there's not enough of a certain type of food, omnivores can adapt because there are so many different types of things that we can still eat. And if we're looking at biodiversity, the more biodiverse our food webs are, the more we will be able to adapt in difficult times. For people who choose a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle, it will be more difficult for them to adapt to an SHTF scenario. I'm not putting down vegans and vegetarians, and in some ways it might be on the plus side too, so I'll talk about that too in a second. But what I'm talking to you right now about is how being an omnivore is a benefit. So not only do we eat plant and animal material, which means if there's not enough animal material, we can eat plants. If there's not enough plant materials, we can eat animals. So that's what I'm talking about, is the versatility, the flexibility in what we can actually consume to get energy and nutrients. On the flip side, we are omnivores, which means we are a little bit more complicated. We need lots of nutrients, lots of antioxidants, vitamins. And so you want to have a food pantry stocked that is full of nutrients and that is not all one thing or another. Rice and beans make a great foundation for your food pantry. However, you have to have a lot of different nutrients. We are also, by being omnivores, we get bored. So if you're eating the same thing all the time, we tend to get bored and our mental health is affected. So in a long-term scenario, you want to have a lot of different types of things, even if it's just different recipes for mixing those things so they seem different. You want to have multivitamins because there are going to be holes in your diet. If you're used to getting certain things and you can't get them anymore, then whatever you have at home is probably not going to have everything that you are used to getting in your normal day-to-day diet, and you might start to feel it. You might feel different. Your metabolism, like you might feel sluggish, you might feel tired, you might get achy, you might have stomach pains. It might be difficult to digest the food that you're digesting because you have changed your diet so much. Yes, you can get protein from vegetables and leafy greens and all that kind of stuff. But if you have backyard chickens and you're feeding them stuff that we can't eat, because their digestive tracts and everything, they're different than us. They can eat some things that we can't eat. And then we can eat their eggs. So it's a way for us to utilize the energy that's in our system, in our systems, and be able to tap into the calories that we can't access. Now, I did say that I think that there's a pros and cons with being vegetarian or vegan in an SHTF situation. For one, if you have nothing and there is a rabbit, would you eat it? Would you eat that rabbit to survive? If you're a vegan and you won't even eat cheese or eggs that aren't fertilized, it's going to be a lot harder for you to survive, where you have to snare a rabbit, skin it, and put it on a spit or something. Like, it's going to take more trauma for you to get through it. I think vegetarians are going to be easier off than vegans, because at least a vegetarian can drink milk or eat cheese or eat unfertilized eggs, those types of things. There are even some people who will eat fish. So with these food restrictions, the more restricted your diet is, the harder it's going to be in an SHTF situation, because you need to be able to eat whatever is there then. And if there happens to be, someone is cooking some meat and you are a vegan and you miss out on those calories, you're going to be using up more of the calories that you've stored away if you have a food pantry, or you're going to have to do a lot of foraging to get enough calories that would equal the amount of calories that would be in that piece of meat. And by volume, meat is going to have a lot more protein and fat, and it's going to be easier for you to get the calories that you need if it's available. On the flip side, in an SHTF situation, it's likely that there's going to be less access to food products, for animal products. Less milk, less cheese, less eggs, less fish, less beef and chicken and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to more likely be limited in, and possibly like cutting down on how much you have available to you. Some of it might be gone at all. There might not be any refrigeration. There could be, like, when they've been killing off some of the backyard chickens, because they're scared of bird flu, whatever. So there might be less of these things. And if you're used to eating meat every day, you're going to have to get used to eating vegetables instead. If you barely eat vegetables, SHTF is going to be a difficult situation, because there might be such a limited supply that you have to grow and eat your own food, or forage for plants and other edible things in the world around us. And if that's the case, your digestive system, if it's like processing all the stuff that you're eating now, and you suddenly change it and you're eating a ton of roughage and a ton of just like leafy greens and apples and that kind of stuff, you're not going to feel very good. Okay, having the big change in your diet is going to be really problematic. You're not going to feel great. You might have some potty problems. Picky eaters are going to really have a rough time in SHTF. I'm not talking about vegans. I'm not talking about vegetarians. I'm not talking about people who are on a paleo diet. I'm talking about people who legitimately only like chicken nuggets, pizza, chips, soda, that kind of stuff. If you're a super, super picky eater, whether it's you only want really healthy foods or you only like junk food, and you only like things if it's a certain way, that's going to be very, very difficult in an SHTF situation. You're going to have to grow up. And if you're a parent and you want to prepare your kids for SHTF, you want to introduce them to some foods, not traumatize them, but introduce them to some foods so that they adapt to this in a more gradual way, and it's not just like right into the frying pan. So really think about what it means to be an omnivore, that we not only can we eat plants and animals and some fungi and some other things besides that. But not only can we, but we should. We should really try to be less picky and have a much more colorful diet and try new things and really try not to stick to the same thing. I mean, even myself, like, I tend to like one thing and then I'll have that same thing for dinner for multiple days, or I'll have the same thing for lunch for multiple days. I don't usually eat breakfast. But if you only eat the same things, when you start to eat things that your body isn't used to, it can make you feel unwell, especially if that's all you have. Like, in a real SHTF situation, you might only have whatever you can scavenge. If I'm looking in my backyard, I'm going to find things like, this time of year, I'll find autumn olives. Okay, I'll find aronia berry. I can dig up sunchokes. Really pasture prime apples. Okay, kale, collard greens, tree collards, some edible flowers like nasturtium. Right now, I know that these things are on my property and I could eat them. My family could eat those things. If SHTF was to happen right now and all we had was to scavenge the backyard. But if you've never had a sunchoke, if you eat a bunch of it, it's going to make you feel unwell. If you've never had these things before, if all you're eating for a whole meal are apples and you barely ever eat them, it's probably not good anyway, because you're gonna feel crampy. But you definitely need to try to break outside your comfort zone, and try to remind yourself you're supposed to be having lots of fruits and vegetables every day, and try not to be so picky, because in an SHTF situation, it could be the matter of life and death. And for our picky kids, that would be heartbreaking. So I know over the years, I've been trying to wean my youngest off of chicken nuggets and those things that are just like not so good for them anyway, but so picky. I mean, I can't think of a better word for it. It's like, if I have to butcher one of my chickens and we are going to make a rotisserie chicken, and I mean, that I would be sad because we consider our hens pets, but we'll do what we have to do. I'm going to feed my family. If my son sat there and didn't eat the chicken, it would be probably a month before we would butcher another chicken. So he would have missed his opportunity to get some protein. So yes, being an omnivore is going to be a definite plus when it comes to a possible SHTF situation. Should our food web become less diverse or less plentiful, being an omnivore is going to help us survive. That means not just being willing to eat plants and animal foods, but also vary in what we will eat. For instance, I hate eating fish. I just can't stand it. I think it's gross. I wish I liked it. I know it's healthy. I'm going to have to get over that. I'm going to have to figure out, okay, let me try something. Maybe try some tilapia or halibut or something. I know I don't like salmon. I don't like it. I like the butter they put on the salmon. Okay. I know I don't like seafood. I don't like the way it smells, but I live in a place where if SHTF happened, I could go fishing. I used to go fishing a lot as a kid, and my stepdad would eat the fish, the trout and stuff I would catch. So I'm good at fishing. I know how to do it. I know how to bait a hook. I just don't like to eat the fish. I don't have a problem. I can chop it up. That's fine. But I just don't like it. So trying to get over being picky is really going to be important. If all we had to forage were the fish we could get from rivers and lakes or from the ocean or digging up shellfish, I'm going to have to get over that. And if I have to butcher a chicken, then I'd have to get over that too. So my point isn't just like to criticize people. I'm talking to myself as well. that we have to stop being quite so picky and realize that we are not outside of these systems. We are animals. We are part of a food web. And we like to distance ourselves from the food web and just go to our pantry or go to the grocery store or go to a drive-thru or go to a restaurant. And we don't see ourselves as being part of these natural systems. And in these natural systems, there's more of something and then there's less of something. And there's more of something and there's less of something. And that's something that naturally happens even without economic issues, without political stuff happening, without there being power outages and shipping issues, whatever. Without all of those things at play, we are organisms that are part of a food web, and we have to be aware that there will be ebbs and flows. There's going to be more of something and less of something, and sometimes you just have to eat what's on your plate, if you know what I'm saying. And everyone should be growing a garden. You should have edible landscaping. You should have fruit trees, nut trees. You should have trees that you can eat the leaves of, like mulberry and linden. You should have grapes. Even if you don't love grapes or you don't like seeded varieties, you can grow a seedless variety. I have grapes that have seeds, but you can also use the leaves. There's so much you can use. Plantain, purslane. There's so many edible things you can grow on your property, even if you don't have a vegetable garden. But definitely have a vegetable garden. Grow things that grow all year long. Grow things that can grow through cold weather, like many of our brassicas. And start to integrate those things that you're growing into your actual diet. Of course, make sure that what you're growing is edible. Don't be silly. But integrate those things into your diet, into your recipes, make it normal. And that way, if you do have to eat more of that thing, you don't end up getting sick. And remember, if you have a big pantry, when you're eating from that pantry, take a little bit of everything. Don't eat all of the one type of thing first. You're going to sure miss that thing when it's all gone. If you go through all the best stuff first and you run out of it and you're just stuck with rice and beans at the end, it's going to be a pretty miserable existence. I don't know about you, but I actually really enjoy foraging. That's why I actually turned my property into a food forest. And it's a constant process because there's always gaps here, gaps there where you can see. But I'm like, I like to grow cherries and strawberries, hazelnuts, chestnuts. I have some small walnut trees. I have all tons of different kinds of fruit trees. I have over 14 hazelnut trees, different kinds of berries, different kinds of root crops. And that's going to help us if we do have to eat off of our properties, that we won't get bored and that there will be something available at different times of the year as well. So there will always be something that we can have, even if it's in small supply. At least there's something. I don't know what the likelihood is of something happening. SHTF is pretty vague. It could be anything. It could be job loss. It could be whatever. If you've ever lost your job and you were waiting for unemployment benefits or whatever have you, some people don't even qualify. If you work for like a nonprofit, they might not have paid into it. So some people are like really surprised when they try to apply for benefits and they don't qualify after being let go from a position, or if a position closes or whatever. Things happen in life, and it might be an isolated case where it's just you and your family are going through a hard time, or it could be a regional issue, or it could be a national or worldwide issue. But we should all be prepared, and the more we are prepared, the less taxing we will be on the supply. If something did happen, there would be more we could leave on the shelves for somebody else to buy if we were growing it in our yard. If we could forage for things and don't have to take that last can of green beans off the shelf. If we have our own stuff stocked up, we're actually doing good by hoarding up a food pantry, because then we can leave something for somebody else. We don't have to take from the food bank. We can give to the food bank, right? So by being a prepper, and even to the smallest extent possible, can you survive off of what you have in your cabinets and in your yard for 6 months? My next video, I'm going to talk about the hungry gap, which is something that I learned about through YouTube, actually, by perusing gardeners in England, Great Britain. So I'll talk to you about that and my thoughts on the hungry gap in my next video. Until then, be good, be sweet, and grow a garden if you want to eat, and I'll see you next time.